All right, so I have a special guest joining me today. She is a Wall Street Journal, Amazon, Kindle, and some other list I'm probably forgetting. Best-selling author. Her new book, Falling for You Again, comes out on July 8th. She will be at Barnes & Noble and Brentwood on July 12th.
Noon
Please
to
welcome
3.
noon to 3. Please welcome Kerry Lonsdale. Thank you for joining me. This is awesome because I've had a chance to interview a lot of guests, and I think you're the first best-selling author I've had.
Ooh.
So thank you.
Well, this will be fun.
Thank you for letting me check that off the list. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
Congratulations on a new book, Falling for You Again.
Yes.
Let's talk about the book. We talked about it a little bit off camera, but it's a second chance romance.
It is a second chance romance.
Tell me about the book.
It is about in the romance industry, when you've got people who read romance, they love to identify these books by their tropes, and so it is a second chance romance, marriage of convenience with a twist book.
Okay.
And the reason why I say it's with a twist is you've got two people who have actually been married together before and got divorced, and now they're in a situation where they are marrying again.
How did you, if I may ask, come up with the idea for this?
Well, a lot of the ideas, sometimes I'll have an entire story that will just drop into my head. And that happened with my book, Side Trip, which is a road trip story. And literally, it's like I saw the beginning, the middle, the end. But most of my books, it might start with just a concept, and it evolves from there. I'm what you call a plotter, where I have to outline the entire novel and at least know where it's going before I start writing. It doesn't necessarily mean that's where it's going to end up, but I at least need somewhat of a dirt road in order to follow. But a lot of times the characters will take over the story. So that's kind of what happened with this one. Is I just had this runaway bride just ditching her wedding and in a taxi cab on her way to the airport, and then it's like, okay, well, why is she running and where's she going and what happens when she gets on that plane?
Have you had, not in second chance romance, but have you had when you write books like this, do some of it come from maybe personal experience from your life beforehand, or I'm kind of curious, when people write romance novels, how they get inspired with the idea, or how the story just kind of comes to mind. Does it kind of come from maybe previous experience growing up as a young? I mean, if I may ask.
No, that's fine. Well, any book that I write, there is going to be some of me that's in there.
Okay.
Because you're writing from the heart. You do write from a certain amount of experience. That's why every book is different. That's why every writing style is different, because the author is pouring their own emotions on it. I will never admit to writing about people that I know or that I've met, but I'm a very good eavesdropper at a coffee shop. So if you're sitting next to me,
person. Okay.
watch out. But for my own personal experience, I actually have the way my husband and I met. We actually met in Paris, and I should say at Versailles in France, and then we ran into each other 3 times that day, completely random. And
it was fate from that point on?
It was fate. And the funny thing is, his mom was there with him, and my parents were with me. And by the time we saw each other the third time that day, it was at a random train station on the other side of where we had originally met. And my mother grabs me and says, "You're going to marry this guy." And then...
from that point on, he's had
3 years later, he proposes. And yes, we've been married now for 29 years.
Have you ever...
Totally ridiculous.
Because I don't know firsthand, but have you ever written a book about how you and your husband met? A story, whether it's fiction story? If I may ask.
No, that's fine. I can't write a story about myself or my personal experience, and I think probably because I'm too close to it. It has to be very fictional, and all my characters are definitely very fictional. And I think, if I'm too close to it, then I start to become biased as to what I'm going to put in there. I don't think I would be fair to the characters.
Last year you had a book, Find Me in California, book club chat. A book made the book club chat summer 24 list. I want to ask, because that from the little bit I've seen is what it's about. It's a very completely different angle on it. I'm kind of I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what gives you the inspiration to kind of pursue these different storylines.
The different storylines, yeah. kind of brand myself as a domestic drama author.
Okay.
So I'm not a 100% pure romance author, but every single book of mine has a romantic thread through it. So this Falling for You Again, my one coming up, is the most romance heavy book, and it's being marketed as a contemporary romance. But domestic drama, I see it as kind of a mashup of family drama and domestic suspense, because I've got some very heavy, almost thriller-ish books, which is my No More series. And then we have my suspense books, which is the Everything series. And then we have what I would call my romantic women's fiction books, which is like Last Summer and All the Breaking Waves and Side Trip, and now Falling for You Again, which are my standalones. Find Me in California was very different, and just to kind of loop back to personal experience, Find Me in California, it kind of addresses the sandwich generation where we're responsible, we've got our kids, and then we're also dealing with our aging parents. But I kind of took this approach a little different, where I have a younger couple who just meet, and and it's their grandmothers who were friends, and both of them have issues with their parents. But this is one. There's a lot of books out there, especially in women's fiction, about how when you have an aging elderly family member, everybody comes together to take care of that person. I wanted to address the issue, or kind of pick apart, what if you're put into the situation and you don't want to take care of that person, and there's nobody else, and there's just that resistance and that procrastination and that avoidance, because this is a person who might have emotionally abused you while you were younger, who never even gave you any sort of regard, and now you're the last person in the family who's available to take care of them. And so this kind of, there's a lot of darkness in that book. And so it was after writing Find Me in California, which is why Falling for You came out, which is fun and uplifting, because I couldn't go down the dark path.
You needed that balance, right?
Yes.
This series, I want to ask, because you have two series, Everything series and then more trilogy, and then you have your standalone stuff, right? How can you, for those who may not understand, 'cause I know when people think series, it's like, oh, this author's just writing 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 pages and just breaking it up, which I don't know who anyone's going to write, who's going to write, let alone read a 6,000 page book in one shot. There are probably people, but
there are people.
There are.
You'd be amazed with the whole romantasy or fantasies.
Oh, even in that genre. Okay.
Yeah, they will. Those books will be 1,000 pages. It's ridiculous.
Right. What I'm curious is more so, how do you kind of how are you able to kind of differentiate yourself writing wise when you're doing a standalone compared to doing a series? I'm kind of curious, is there a different writing wise, is there a different technique? Do you have or is it just it's one big story kind of divided into 3 parts, and then the standalones obviously just standalones?
There is a different process. So with the Everything series, my debut was Everything We Keep. And I wrote that book as a standalone, but there's a bit of a cliffhanger. And that one was a series that it evolved out of it, because my editor, there's a certain character that I leave hanging at the end of that book. And my editor's like, well, you can't leave this guy stuck down here. She's like, I want to know what his story is. And so we signed the contract, and I wrote his story. And then the third book in that series was appeasing the fans, so to speak, because there was a favorite character in there. But it all worked out. So that one was a little different for me, because it's taken a standalone and making it into a series. But as I expanded on that particular world with every book, it became easier to write. And it's much easier to write a series like the second and third book, because you're coming back to characters that you're familiar with. I'm not building these characters from ground up, trying to figure out, okay, what are their traits, and what is their internal wound and false belief and everything that goes into adding flesh to a character. And the reason why we call that a series is because I'm not particularly sure if that one is done yet.
Right.
But then we have the No More trilogy, because there's definitely just those 3 books. And that one I plotted from the beginning. And so I knew that there would only be 3 books, and it's about 3 siblings who have some very dysfunctional parents, and it deals with generational trauma. with regards to family dysfunction, but there's a certain event that happened in these kids' lives, and each book takes their viewpoint of that particular event, and so you kind of see how things change. But then, so it was dealing with that as well as coming up with an overreaching arc for the entire trilogy. So you're not just coming up with an arc for the book, you're coming up with like an arc for the entire trilogy.
Right.
And then standalones is you've got your open and shut case for a story and with the characters. And so standalones, I'll write a series and then I'll do a couple standalones and then write another series and do a couple standalones. So
let me ask you about you. We were talking off camera. You said you've been writing since 2010.
I have been writing fiction since 2010. Yes.
And then you've been published since 2016.
Correct.
Published last 9 years or so.
Yes.
What got you into writing?
Well, you talk about marketing. I know that you and I offline had talked about marketing.
The fun business.
Yeah. So I was a marketing major, and then I went straight into marketing. I have been in the insurance industry and high tech, as well as business services like HR and payroll, and going from just a little peon to like a marketing executive. So there was always writing to a certain extent, but it was technical writing or it was copywriting or advertisements. And it was 2010, my kids had entered middle school, and I took that time off to be home with them because it's a very influential age, and I wanted last opportunity to do so. But, I was just kind of going a little crazy, not doing anything. And I had a story. Actually, everything we keep, the seed of the story struck me back in the late 90s. But I didn't know how to write, and I had just started my marketing career, and I had no idea what to do. And so it actually came back to me again in 2010 when I wasn't working, and kind of I saw the whole story, and so I just started writing it, and I kind of put myself back to went back to school, taught myself how to write, studying plot, characterization, pacing, everything that goes into a novel. And I told myself I'm going to give it 5 years because that was my plan, was to stay home with the kids for 5 years. And I said, if I cannot acquire an agent, because I wanted to take what you call the traditional publishing as opposed to self-publishing, if I can't acquire an agent and get a publishing contract by 2015, I was going to brush up my resume and get back out there in the workforce. But wrote the book, started writing it in 2010, acquired an agent in 2013, and signed a publishing contract in 2015. And that book, came out in 2016, and it took off like a rocket. The book, it was amazing.
Talk about making that jump, because I think writing journalism, especially, two careers that people on the outside look at it as like, in this economy, you want to do this? You know what I mean? With the way, especially with the way everything is. I'm kind of curious, like, what pushed you to make that jump to go into writing? I'll talk about the success and everything after, but what kind of sparked that was like, I'm going to do this? Like, what was there like a particular moment?
Well, it was a particular moment where once I got the agent, I realized, this is something that I can do. But book publishing, across the board, authors do not make that much money. They don't. Unless you've got a...
Neither do journalists, trust me.
Neither do journalists, I know. A lot of self-published authors now, it's very different now than it was when I first signed a contract. A lot of self-published authors right now, indie authors, are doing incredibly well, bringing home 6+ figures, and they're doing all their own marketing, own publishing. They're basically running their business and doing a phenomenal job. And social media has really helped those authors reach their audience. Basically, they've taken out the middleman, which is kind of a big fear of the larger the big New York publishers is, the middleman's disappearing. But with regards to my own personal leap, part of it is that I had set myself, this needs to be income generating for me. I need to be able to live off of it. And like I said, with everything we keep, it skyrocketed. So my publisher is Amazon Publishing, and that is the traditional publishing imprint of Amazon. It's not the self-publishing,
Right.
where they actually have editors and you need an agent.
It's an actual publishing house.
Correct.
Right.
It's a publishing house. And so, as we know with Amazon, they have, it's called now Amazon First Reads. At the time, it was called Kindle First.
Right.
And what they do is they release their own original content, which is us authors writing our books. They release the own original content on the first of the month, and then it comes out, and that's the Kindle version. And then the first of the following month, it will be out in the Kindle version as well as the paperback. Some have hardback copies and audiobooks. And so back in 2016, this program was still amazing, and it's still was a lot of people were downloading those Kindle First books, etc. And so Everything We Keep was nominated by my editor for the Kindle First program, and it was released on July 1st, 2016. And as far as I know to this date, it is the best performing Kindle First book that has ever come out, because within 1 month, 435,000 people downloaded the book.
Which leads to my next question.
Yeah, which is incredible when you think about the number of sales that other authors get. I mean, just for the majority of authors, even being able to sell 1,000 copies of their book is considered successful.
Right. Which leads to my next question, because you talk about making this jump, and you want to do the traditional route, which is maybe riskier than, the self-publishing route and everything. When you got told the sales numbers, for one, but then at the same time, when you reach the Wall Street Journalist, when you reach WashPo, when you reach Amazon, you become number one on Kindle, like, take me through that moment, because, I mean, you're kind of thinking, okay, it goes from like, let's see where this goes, and you're hoping for the best and everything, to you made it. I mean, it's essentially speaking, right?
Well, kind of, it was can't swear on here, but
I'm not stopping you, so.
It was a big F-you to a lot of people when that succeeded, because I will tell you, Everything We Keep, I mean, I was a debut author, but I was also an amateur fiction writer. I didn't know what I was doing when I first started writing Everything We Keep. So when we want to go the traditional route and need to acquire an agent, us authors or writers have to do what's called a query letter, which is kind of like a sales pitch. And so you're sending out query letters. You're trying to find agents who love your book as much as you do, who give you an offer of representation, and then they're the ones that will create a package and submit it to the publishers. And so they have to love the book as much as you do, and they have to believe that they can sell that book and believe that the book is going to be a success. I queried 160 agents I should say, not 160 agents, but I sent out 160 query letters, which by query letter standards is a lot. But it was over several various versions of the book, because when you're sending out a query letter, you may be fortunate and get a reply back from the agent saying, the book resonated with me, but this is why I'm not.
Pretty much thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks, but no thanks. But they'll kind of clue you in as to why why. And so then you'll take this feedback, and if it resonates with you as the author, then you will go and you will revise it. And so yes, I revised it numerous times. 160th letter, finally got the offer of representation. And then for it to go and bonkers with regards to the selling and be so well received, all of a sudden I have agents calling me saying, well, if it's not working out with your current agent, we can.
So you should be like, say thanks, but here's why.
But agents themselves, they don't know if a book is going to be.
Right.
Nobody knows if a book is going to be successful. Publishers try to guess which of their books, because they have their list that they release every quarter. And every quarter, one of those books is the one that gets all the money.
Right.
Because they pretty much put all of their resources, financial staff, etc., behind that one big book. And for all they know, it might just soar. But a lot of times, it just flops. And then you have kind of your diamonds in a rough that slowly gain traction over a year. And the one that they ignored is now being completely well received and is blowing up over social media. So there's no formula to it. It's all a guessing game.
Has your life changed ever since becoming a best-selling author? I've always wanted this because I've seen it with like the top journalists and such. I got friends of mine who like they read it for LA Times, New York Times, stuff like that, right? And I'm kind of wondering from the publishing perspective, like you mentioned how you were working marketing before, and now you're best-selling. Now you're a best-selling author. Here we are, 15 years pretty much since. How much have you seen your life change, like since as everything's kind of built up?
Well, my life has changed in the sense that I technically am not having to work because I'm doing something I'm completely passionate about. As they say, if you're doing something you absolutely love, you're really not getting up to go work. You're getting up to do something that you love. But I would say that since publishing, my world has gotten smaller, but it has also gotten bigger. I mean, it has shrunk in the sense that I work from home. I'm sitting at my desk all day writing. You know how it is. It's like
a very long commute.
Yeah, very long commute. But you're on deadline or you're just staring at the screen, and writer's block is a very real thing, and it can get very lonely, which is why you have a lot of communities that evolve, authors, getting together, just because it's a very lonely workplace.
It's writing in general, it's a very different network compared to like friend groups and stuff like that.
It's very different, and but it's gotten bigger in that I'm meeting people that I never would have. Readers reaching out, other authors reaching out. The networking's been incredible. Now that we can travel again, it's and get to go places, and so the book community, especially with social media, is just incredible. But what we've kind of been seeing lately with a trend, because it is lonely, there is people are now looking for things to get off their digital devices.
Right.
And so you've got book clubs lately have just been soaring. In fact, I even just started my own book club, Literary Boudoir.
Is it the Beach Club? No.
No.
Okay, kidding.
So I have the Beach Club, which is my newsletter.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay.
And I have the Tiki Lounge, which is my reader community, which is on Facebook. Okay. And so that's where I'll post notifications about what's going on in my book world, as well as recommend reads.
Right.
And that's just where my readers can engage with me. The Literary Boudoir is actually a women's romance book club in person we meet that I just started. And so people can find it on the book club app. And because it is, I've been wanting to get out there as an author. It's very hard to, if there's a book that I don't enjoy or really want to discuss, I will not put a low rating or give an author a low rating on any book because I know how hard it is to write a book. And if I don't like a book, that's not because of the author. That's because of me, because that book might not have resonated with me. And that's what I think some readers kind of have a tendency to forget. It's not the author's fault why you're not liking it or because you don't like what a character does or anything. That's on you. But I want to create a community to get together where I can offline just sit and talk about books, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
You mentioned everyone. I want to ask you, you just mentioned everyone kind of getting off their screens. I don't want to say books are having a resurgence per se, but it does kind of feel like that. From in the last couple of years, you really seen this huge surge of books. Like I started buying books again.
That's awesome.
Do I have time to read them? No, but I have my own like mini library going on. I know my wife's a big romance novel. Person. Books in general, you've seen sales kind of go up. Romance novels especially have really gone up. I'm kind of curious on your take on just like, because I think people over time, pre and post COVID, they have this view on like they have this view on romance novels, right? Oh, it's for women, it's for this. And the numbers kind of show that a little bit. But there is this popularity of the romance novel. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on just like this renaissance per se.
The Renaissance, yes. Well, we can thank the pandemic for that, with everybody being forced.
You might be the first person I've known to thank the pandemic, just so you know.
Well, that's where the reemergence or the surgence in books came. I mean, I think we might have eventually have gotten to this point where we are now with this resurgence and people buying books again. But I think it happened a lot quicker because we were forced to stay at home. And how do you have community when everybody's living in their own little boxes? Right. It's through social media, and Book Talk and Bookstagram have just been a huge boon to people picking up paperbacks, because they like that tangible book that they can, with their aesthetic, and take photos of and talk about and review, and that's become something that we can all come together and bond over and talk about. And so yes, and that because the ebooks were doing really well in the 2010s.
And everyone thought that was going to be the future, right? The Kindles, iPads.
We thought paperbacks might be going away.
Right, even to an extent, even hardcovers, right?
Correct.
Just from a size perspective, a travel perspective, I can just have this entire library on my iPad, on my phone. I can read it on the train, whatever, being from New York, having to commute. I think it's interesting seeing people carrying physical, whether it's paperback, even hardcover, the big hardcover. People kind of doing that in an era where they were making all these e-readers, right? For both, and dark mode e-readers, right? The Kindle app was a big thing. Audiobooks are a big thing. I mean, for a lot of people,
audiobooks are
right there too.
Yeah, audiobooks have seen a real resurgence too, because you talk about not having time to read. If you have audiobooks, you just kind of plug in, and
it's almost like a podcast.
Yeah, like here, as you were setting it up, you could have been listening to your book.
They didn't let me listen to anything here, trust me. But it's really interesting seeing that, because, I'm sure you did this with your kids growing up. When I was growing up, my parents really encouraged reading, right? I remember in elementary school having, the Scholastic Book Fairs, which I looked forward to every freaking year.
I love the Scholastic Book Fairs.
I passed by the Scholastic store in New York in Manhattan. Oh, it was awesome. My entire childhood, I was like, oh my goodness, and I felt like every level of 10 below was the whole time.
Yes.
But did see that coming in an age where I think it's interesting now, because before it was okay, we need to get our kids reading without, and not saying not doing anything else, but really encouraging. Now it's we need to get our kids off the screens, right? We need to kind of do that. There's that battle, and trying to put the physical copies of books. I mean, it's very interesting how I don't want to say it all kind of goes full circle, but how it's all kind of coming together the way where not only we kind of trying to push books, but now social media, which is what all the kids on, trying to push books. I mean, it's very interesting seeing. Does it affect you as a writer, as far as not the popularity per se, but the social media aspect of it, Bookstagram, the Book Talk? Does it affect your writing as far as when you're writing a book, or are you just kind of going about business normal?
Oh, well, social media is definitely an aspect of the author career, because there's a certain level of expectation from our publishers that we need to be out there hawking our wares.
That advertising type thing,
the advertising. And I get burned out on social media. And
I know the feeling.
There's a lot of, there are quite a few authors who hire social media assistants, who are the ones that are doing the posting and scheduling it so that we can focus on writing. The social media per se, especially when an author is on there, does not sell books. I'm not going to post a book and somebody's not going to click on a link and run over there and buy the book. What it does is it increases awareness of a book, and then what sells a book is when you get the readers that are sitting there and talking about the book, etc. I can't sell my books, but I can get on there and talk to my readers and kind of engage with them and let them be aware of what books that I've got coming out, or maybe feature a particular book just to kind of remind them of the books that I have. But it's the readers themselves that kind of make a book go viral. Somebody like Reese Witherspoon or Jenna Bush, they will not necessarily make a book go viral. And this is just me expressing my opinion right here, but there is some talk in the industry that these celebrity book endorsers have actually narrowed the field with regards to the books that get sold and picked, because the publishers, again, will put all their resources behind that book. So there's a lot of other books that are probably a lot better than the ones that these celebrities are picking that get looked over, because then you've got your issues of FOMO, fear of missing out. So everybody's reading the books that everybody else is being told to read.
Right. It's funny because it's almost like books kind of falling into the same media gap like music is. Everyone's listening to the same thing, right? Movies, video games, stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is the cool stuff. This is what you need to read.
I think especially with Spotify and a lot of these streaming services, we're kind of seeing some similarities between the book and the music industry as to what we are being not forced to, but what we're being shown or encouraged.
Pushed to, right.
Yes, what's being pushed towards us to listen to. And so, I mean, you really have to go in there, just like for your books, you have to go in there with your music and curate what your preferences are to start seeing some artists that you might not normally come across. I mean, I will say that there's a lot of musicians or artists that I have discovered on Spotify I normally wouldn't have come across, if I was just walking through Tower Records and
I miss music stores. I gotta tell you, right?
But they're actually vinyl stores are coming back.
They are. That's true.
Love and it's so weird. People talk about paperbacks and loving the smell of a paperback, and they have to have that in their hand. I love the smell of a vinyl record store. There's a certain scent.
My father's the same way. My dad's a musician in New York, and so like growing up, we had this huge record collection, like shelves of just like records. Like he acquired when he was like playing, and he acquired back when he was performing, and it was over time and such. And so it's just that CDs are cool, tapes are cool, don't get me wrong, but there's something different about the vinyl record, right? It just feels very not historic, but it feels very proper.
Yes.
Right. I got ask about this because you've been in Brentwood since 2001.
2001.
Is this your first signing in Brentwood proper?
This
if I may ask, I ask because I don't know.
No. I had a signing when the Everything series when I did not do it for the debut because it was just nuts because with that Kindle First just skyrocketing.
Right.
I mean, I just trying to keep up with everything was absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
they should have had you sign Kindles.
Yeah,
like
I know, right?
Devices, right?
Wouldn't that be neat? So, but when the third book in the series came out, Everything We Give, I had a signing at Cocoa County over there, and so with Becky Bloomfields, and so it was more of a party. But this is the first signing in Brentwood proper. So I love that Barnes & Noble relocated to here, and it's like.
Have you been to the new one?
I have.
I love the new one, honestly.
It's the design and the layout. It's a lot more intimate. It's very like old school bookstore.
It feels. It has that big music store feel for a bookstore.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Just like it's very tall. The selection is very wide. Like I remember when it opened. I know my editor went when it opened. He loved it, and then I think a week or two later, I finally went to go check it out, and I was just floored when I went. I was like, "Wow!" Like,
yes.
Because I've been to Barnes and Nobles like between here and New York, and even in Texas throughout, and. They were cool and they were nice and everything, but when you walk into this one in Brentwood, this is not a shameless plug, trust me. But when you walk into the one in Brentwood, it just feels like different. It's a different kind of vibe to it.
Did you ever go to the one when it was there in Antioch?
Yeah, I've been to that one. Yeah, it was cool. Don't get me wrong, I like that one too.
That's Barnes & Noble in general, where they have kind of repositioned themselves, and they're going through with a lot of their stores. I think it was like they're over the couple of years they're opening 60 new stores and shutting down some of the older ones. But yeah, when you look at the layout, it had the Antioch one had the big box feel. You walk in, and this one has more of the small town community feel, which is what Barnes & Noble's going for. I think it's kind of a blend between the big box as well as the small independent stores.
No, it's awesome. It's actually really cool you're doing a signing there.
Yeah.
So you're signing July 12th.
July 12th.
12 to 3?
From noon to 3. Yes. And it will
then
be signing for Falling for You Again, and people can pre-order from the store to have it there.
You can, if you want to learn more about Kerry Lonsdale, you can find her on her site, kerrylonsdale.com.
Yes.
And apparently we can learn about your cats on Instagram. At Kerry Lonsdale on Instagram.
Yep, at Kerry Lonsdale.
What's like being a cat lady?
Cat lady. Well, I have 3 cats, and two of them adopted us. Well, actually, one of them right now adopted us, or maybe I should say 3.5 cats, because we actually have a porch cat now.
Oh, okay.
This
it's
guy,
working its way in.
Well, I don't know. This one, okay. This one we have a very long-haired orange tabby named Orange Julius, and this cat. I know, right? My neighbor named him.
I love the reference.
My neighbor named him.
The reference is very first class.
Your younger audience probably won't get that reference.
The reference is very first class. I love it.
And he definitely wanted to become an indoor cat. Now, the one now, we call him Pipsqueak because he's really tiny, but Pip is a friend of mine named him because it stands for Pet in Progress.
That's awesome.
But he's a lot more feral. I mean,
right.
he won't let me touch him, but
a little more wild.
He's got a bed on the porch, and I feed him with the other cats.
He's just doing his thing.
I've got a bleeding heart, and I'm a total sucker.
I get that.
Yeah, and he knows it.
We had a cat when I was younger. My dad had a cat in New York, and then it scratched my sister, and that cat went. My dad launched that cat out the window, and I was like,
"No."
I kind of get it. And since then, like, we're more of a dog family overall. My best friend, my brother, pretty much, in New York, he got a cat like just on a whim, and he says, "Oh, it's been one of the best things ever." And I'm just like, "You do nothing with it."
Cats are
which may be the best part of being a cat. Which may be the best part of being a cat owner, because dogs you have to be very.
Oh, dogs! You got to get the pet sitter every time you leave. Sometimes if it's just a short weekend,
pet sitter, you're just not allowed to leave.
Yeah. If it's a short weekend, I'll just throw out food and water, and we're off.
Do the cats read with you? Could the cats read with you?
They have behind my desk. I have a big built-in bookcase, and there's a shelf, and there's a window by there, and so they will.
They're right there.
They're right over my shoulder, and I'll be on Zooms, and
that's how you know you made it as an author. Just so you know, when the cats are there, when you're a pet owner and an author, like the pets are right there. That's how you know.
Yes.
Kerry Lonsdale, thank you so much for joining. This has been awesome.
So
really appreciate that.
Jeff, thanks for having me.
Falling for You Again comes out July 8th in stores everywhere. In stores everywhere and on Kindle. And then Kerry will be at the Barnes & Noble in Brentwood July 12th from 12 to 3.
Yes.
So please check out the book.
Great way to spend a Saturday.
It'll be so cool. If you do a Q&A, if we happen to do a Q&A in Brentwood, we've got there's a host. I'll send you my resume.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.